That may be unfair. Mueller said that he wouldn't deviate from his report, and for the most part, he followed through on those commitments. But to break down allegations of a two-tier system, I want to bring on Dennard, the senior communications advisor for Black Media Affairs for the Republican National Committee. Paris, of course, last Friday, the president commuting the sentence of Roger Stone. Coming into today, a lot of those in the media, a lot of his critics are saying that that is the latest abuse of power committed by the president. What's your response to those allegations?
I'm sorry, I laugh because it's laughable. The president has the right, the constitutional authority to commute a sentence of anyone in the United States of America. The president also has the right, the constitutional right, to pardon anyone in the United States of America. It's not an abuse of power when you look at what the president did. What the abuse of power was how the justice system treated Roger Stone. And the fearful thing that I think that really should cause people in America to have great pause is that if this has been able to be carried out for Roger Stone, if other people like Paul Manafort could have what happened to him, imagine what could happen to an average American citizen who doesn't have the resources, the connection, or platform like these two men had. Imagine what could happen to everyday Americans when a political adversary feels that you don't have the same rights that they do and they choose to politically go after you. We see it in the justice system, but we also see it with the cancel culture and the things that we've seen with Goya Foods. It's the same thing. It's going after somebody, using your time, your platform, your resources, and using the system itself, whether it's the economic system or the justice system, to penalize your adversaries. And so I believe 100% the president did not abuse any power. He was well within his constitutional authority to do so. He could have pardoned. He chose to do a commutation, and past presidents have done so, and past presidents, like President Clinton, have done things that were very questionable in terms of direct ties to campaign contributions and to his own brother, Roger Clinton. And so this was not an abuse of power.
No, and when you're talking about the broad power that the president does have, you bring up President Clinton pardoning his brother. We could go down the list, though. I mean, President Nixon, of course, pardoned by President Ford, President Johnson commuting the sentences of all Confederate soldiers. I mean, it is something where to say that there is a broad authority is an understatement. It's almost an exclusive authority given to the president when it comes to this. But now we see, of course, over the weekend, Robert Mueller defending his actions in the face of new scrutiny. And then Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham saying, well, maybe we'll bring in Mueller again to testify about what he said in his op-ed. Is that kind of a strange development to you?
It's not. Look, Robert Mueller can't help himself. He was a leaker then. He's trying to play with the media now. It's not surprising. I think we need to focus on protecting the American people and focus on the really criminal justice reform and these reform measures. What we've seen here is an abuse of power by the government to target people that they do not agree with. And Robert Mueller should be ashamed of himself. But you know what? When you look at Kayleigh McEnany, the press secretary, talked about this today. When you look at other people like Clapper and the rest of those guys, they were accused of doing the exact same thing as the case here with Roger Stone, but they didn't end up in having authorities knock on their windows, bust down their doors, and big massive raids and tactical equipment. They didn't have that happen to them. It's different when it comes to Republicans. It's different when it comes to Trump supporters. And I think Robert Mueller and the rest of those people in his corrupted circle should be ashamed of themselves and should just go out quietly and let justice be served and not try to rewrite history.
And in fact, when it comes to some of the prosecutors on Mueller's team, we even see people like Andrew Weissman saying that they want to bring this to a different court system, continue pursuing the charges against Roger Stone. And it's a little bit troubling in a way because this is a case that essentially has no bearing on the American public. People really outside of the Beltway don't care about this. It doesn't affect anyone's lives for that matter. And to see millions of dollars spent on not only the special counsel investigation, but then the runoffs of that investigation as well. I mean, for a lot of people, it's just something that doesn't affect their everyday lives. But you bring up people like Clapper, Brennan, McCabe, for example, people who are accused of making false statements as well. Would you rather see Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham focus his oversight authority on those individuals rather than bringing Mueller once again?
I would. I think that I think the American people should have both sides of this argument brought to bear in the public scrutiny. We've seen, in my opinion, just one side. We've seen one side, meaning the Congress focused on Russia and failed, focused on impeachment and failed, focused on Ukraine and failed. But you never had the same type of urgency and fairness and transparency focused on the other side with Clapper and Brennan and focus on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They don't do that. And I think that's what, if you're going to go down this road of having all these expensive investigations, let's go after on both sides to have the full scope of what transpired, rather than wasting more, in my opinion, wasting taxpayers' dollars, because really there are a lot more important things going on right now than these more and more political witch hunts from the Hill and from the government that is really only focused on undermining the voters and trying to undermine President Trump and his supporters.
I think you're right. And I mean, there's no doubting that investigations to some degree have been weaponized in a political way. And I guess at this point, it's up to Republicans to either say we're going to play hardball and match those types of investigations, or look the other way and start saying we're going to focus on policy points that actually affect people. I think both are convincing arguments, but it's just a matter of which way they want to go from this point forward, because it's become clear that Democrats are going to continue investigating until they no longer have that oversight power. But Paris Dennard, I appreciate you coming on tonight, breaking down these headlines. Thank you.